PFAS, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, all 15,000 plus of them, a chain gang of carbon stubbornly holding on so very tight to their fluorines. Here are just two of them. TFA, an ultra short chain, PFOA, a long chain. There's short chains. There's so many different kinds. They were so useful that we used them in all kinds of products, but now we're realizing the scale of their negative impacts and trying to pry them out of water. So first up, my colleague, Dr. Patrick Dube, he will tell us about how years of research now led the United States to introduce groundbreaking federal regulations for drinking water. So Patrick, tell us what's been happening with PFAS in the United States.
In October 2021, the U.S. EPA announced the agency's PFAS strategic roadmap, which outlined the actions and commitments that the agency would make in regard to PFAS through 2024. And their approach focused on three main directives: research, restriction, and remediation. And over the past 3 years, the EPA has undertaken a science-backed approach to address PFAS in the U.S. This recently culminated with the first ever national legally enforceable drinking water standard to protect communities from exposure to harmful PFAS. And with around 66,000 public drinking water systems in the U.S., the EPA estimates that around 6 to 10% of these utilities may have to take action to reduce PFAS to meet these new standards. Now, the 6 PFAS chosen to be regulated were selected because of the clear science behind their link to significant health impacts. And these health risks include kidney and liver cancer, developmental effects, thyroid and liver issues, and more. And although the EPA did not quantify all of the health benefits that addressing these PFAS will bring, they estimate the effect will be greater than around $1.5 billion per year.
Which PFAS exactly are being regulated then?
EPA is establishing legally enforceable levels for 6 PFAS that are known to occur individually and or as mixtures in drinking water. 5 are enforced individually, and those are PFOA and PFOS, which have a minimum contaminant level of 4 parts per trillion. PFNA, PFHXS, and GenX have a minimum contaminant level of 10 part per trillion. And then PFNA, PFHXS, GenX, and PFBS are regulated as a mixture around a hazard index MCL. And this hazard index with a value lower than 1 essentially indicates that no known or anticipated adverse impacts on the health of persons occur, and it also allows for an adequate margin of safety with respect to health risk.
What's the time frame for compliance on these new rules? And what do you think we'll be seeing in the next 5 years?
So the EPA stated that this rule is achievable and implementable, and drinking water utilities should be able to reach these new requirements using technologies that exist that are already in use today. Those technologies include things like granular activated carbon, reverse osmosis, and ion exchange systems. So typically the Safe Drinking Water Act, which is under which this rule was developed, generally provides a 3-year timeframe for compliance with these new rules. But because there's significant capital improvements to systems that need to occur to comply, the EPA exercised its authority and extended the typical 3-year timeline to 5. So what's going to happen over the next 5 years? Well, over the next 3, by 2027, public water systems must complete initial monitoring and then follow that with ongoing compliance monitoring. Water systems also need to provide the public with information on levels of PFAS in their drinking water beginning in 2027. And then public water systems have 5 years, so until 2029, to implement solutions that reduce these PFAS if the monitoring shows that the drinking water levels exceed these MCLs. And then also beginning in 2029, public water systems that have PFAS in their drinking water, which violate one of these MCLs, must take action to reduce the levels of the PFAS and provide notice to the public of the violation.
Oof. How much do you think all this will cost?
So the EPA estimates that the costs for public water systems to implement and reach the levels in the regulation are approximately $1.5 billion per year. And they have also provided some funding to help offset these costs. So the bipartisan infrastructure law is providing $9 billion specifically to invest in communities where with drinking water impacted by PFAS and other emerging contaminants. And then states and communities can also leverage around $12 billion in the state revolving funds that are dedicated to making drinking water safer. Um, and then the EPA is also taking additional actions under its PFAS strategic roadmap to hold polluters accountable.
Thanks again, Patrick. It's great to hear that there will be dedicated funding available to help water utilities meet these new regulations.